Welcome back to the Mom Mentality Show. My name is Austin Chadwick, and today we are super excited to have three excellent guests with us today. Marco Consolaro, Alex Di Gioia, and Pedro Santos. And we have some really fantastic topics. We'll be talking about their book, Agile Technical Practices Distilled. We'll be talking about mob programming and training from the back of the room. But before we jump into those topics, Marco, do you want to start us off with an introduction, and then we'll kind of go around about yourself?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting us to this amazing show. We really like it. So it's an honor for us to be here. I am Marco. I am a software developer since many years. I work in Italy and in London, and I am now also an author of our book, as you can see here. So very exciting to tell you more about that.
Fantastic. How about you, Alex?
I'm Alessandro Di Gioia, and I am also a software developer for around 20 years now. I've been a software developer and consultant in Italy, in Norway, and in the UK now. Last year, Marco and I started a new adventure with Alcor Academy after writing our book together with Pedro Santos. And we are embracing mob programming as a way of teaching our courses, because we have seen massive success adopting this technique.
Okay, about me, I'm another software developer, again, with more than 20 years experience, and also around Europe. I think I've done a bit more countries than them, but I would not bother everyone with them. So I was with them in London, and now I'm in Barcelona, lovely city. I love to be here. And that's it about me.
Right on, right on. So I guess I maybe will jump in with your book, Agile Technical Practices Distilled. What caused you to write this book? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about the story, how the book came to be, right? It's funny. So we were working together in a company in London, and I was the last one joining, right? Actually, both of them were doing the interview when I joined the company. And I really joined them because I loved it. I was like, wow, there's amazing people in this company. Look at these two. They did an interview and they're fantastic. I'm already learning stuff. And so we were I was working with Pedro to the training program for the apprentices. There was a very nice training program. And Pedro had this material to do this coaching thing for the junior people. And it was like, oh, come on, work with me, help me to expand this stuff. And I was looking at the material, it was fantastic. I was like, I've never seen a part like that before, right? So one day I went to him and I say, Pedro, but this stuff is amazing. You should write a book with this thing. And so he told me, listen, it's a year I'm trying to find out a way to write a book. I'm going nowhere. Would you like to write it with me? Yeah, so I was like, let me think. Yes, right? And so you say, oh, okay, let's throw away everything and restart. I said, no, wait, let's not throw away anything. Let's refactor. And we started to work a little bit about this material. The phrase that Pedro and me agrees too much about many things. So we were, yes. So actually, at a certain point, we were like, we agree too much. We need somebody that challenge our ideas a little bit, right? And so Pedro was like, oh, I know. Let's ask Alex, right? And that's how we came to this. I was, oh yes, Alex, let's ask. And we sit together in a pizzeria in London winter night, and we were talking about this. And the title came out, and the plan came out, and from there it was really easy to actually get the book done.
Yeah, I should say that the book it's like the materialization of what we were already doing somehow during our careers, because in one way or another, we always ended up being coaches for companies, technical coaches. Even if we are developers, eventually people wanted to learn these technical practices, and trying with many people, we found the easiest path to embrace these, let's say, agile technical practices.
Yeah, the thing I think I like the most is, and Alex, by the way, got involved a bit earlier without knowing, because he was working with me and a customer, and we were doing this technical coaching for their engineers. And so this document I had, Alex had contributed to it, and it was just a working document, just notes that we had contributed. So it was easy for Alex to come and join because he knew the material. I had sort of compiled everything, but Alex had added lots and lots of ideas. Even if he didn't wrote some of them, I would hear him, oh, I had this problem with this software engineer today, and this is how I solved. Oh, that's great. Let me take note of that. And that's how the book grew up, which is very interesting because it was not like a theoretical exercise. It came from, I would call the trenches, from working with software engineers, having problems and seeing how can I explain this better? What exercise, what kata is better? And we tried, like me and Alex, many, and then Marco again. Let's try this kata. It doesn't work because they really go this way and it's not the best way to learn. So we tried lots of things. And then in the book was like, okay, this is now working. We can see a path. Then let's start writing it down.
Basically, we applied our own approach of test-driven development to the book. So fast feedback loop, many experiments, and continuous improvement until we found, let's say, a stable version that was optimized to, I wouldn't even say upskill people, to prepare people, because we found out that our role moved gradually from coaches to trainers. And there's a kind of a difference in there because the coach is the person that goes on the field with people and works on the production code. Instead, we were preparing people to be able to deal with production code, but in a safer environment. And that's when mob programming comes into place, in my opinion, because mobbing or ensemble programming, it's a way to create a safe environment, a psychological safe environment of trust where people can experiment and learn without stress.
Yeah, and maybe that's a great segue. Yeah, how have you seen ensemble working or mob programming work to help people feel safe and learn together? Yeah.
For us, that way to work, it went a little, we introduced it along the way because we started in the beginning with a lot of pair programming. But then we experiment with mob in the coaching, and we saw that it was surpassing the pairing in terms of effectiveness in creating a group, a team spirit, right? Which is, that's why we call our training with Alcor Academy here, Socio-Technical Training, because the mob programming is the social part, right? And that is something that we put behind, between the lines, right? We go, oh, yes, you learn TDD, you learn outside in, you learn domain-driven design, but instead you learn to collaborate effectively with your colleagues. And once you learn that, it's when you really extract the best of everyone inside the group. But it takes time, it takes practice, like everything, right? So our lesson, the first 3 lessons, it's really easy exercise, almost banal, right? But then the really hard thing is to get them communicate effectively to resolve that easy exercise.
So I can add something in here that happened to me. It was like a side effect that I was not looking for. It just happened. And then I saw, oh, this is a really nice side effect. I think Alex was with me at that. So we had a group, and there was a team that not everyone could come to that group. So we said, okay, let's open the next. We usually do the mob with one team, but we decided, okay, let's bring people from other teams. And then they started working, and we were also, me and Alex were working with them on production code. And there was a change. Suddenly, when there was a problem, the team was not blaming the other team. Oh, those guys do something wrong. They know, oh, I do more programming with the guys on the other team. I know him. So there was this empathy. Let me go and reach out to this person that I've met on the coaching sessions. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, this is a really nice side effect that we were not looking forward. It was just the parts we put together. Let's mix people from different. And now when I go to a customer, I always say, let's mix people from different teams, people that don't work together, because it builds up this culture in the company. They are moving on this kata, whatever, learning together. And when they have a problem, they know someone in the other team and they can approach them easily. It breaks those silos away. And this was a lesson that was totally unexpected. We were not looking for it. And it was so nice to see this happening.
Yes, I can say that we were able to explain this effect looking at Patrick Lencioni's book on the 5 dysfunctions of a team, because basically we managed to find out that we were able to build trust. But why were we able to build trust between people that didn't even work together? Actually, they were almost competing with each other in the companies, right? How did that happen? Yeah. Well, the power of mob programming is that people are kind of forced to show vulnerability, okay? People have to accept that in front of others, there are things that they don't know. There are decisions that are not able to take, right? Someone else maybe instead has that perspective, okay? So everyone has to accept that no one's perfect and someone else can compensate my lack of knowledge in some fields. And that's when you get the best of everyone. In fact, on this, I have some kind of anecdotal evidence, because in one of the courses we give about legacy code, there are some exercises we do where people are divided in pairs and they have to solve some kind of exercises so that they discover the knowledge instead of being taught. That's one of
mirror boards.
Yes, this is one of the ways of the training from the back of the room. And basically, if you look at the results compared to the solution, let's say each pair gets 80% of correct answers, okay? But if you combine those, 2 pairs got the right answer on something. So cumulatively, they get 100% correct. So if they work together as a mob, they would have achieved 100% correct answers. Instead, spread only in 2 people or alone, they can only do so much. And that's when I would say it's an anecdotal proof that working with a mob is a way to compensate for lack of knowledge in some areas.
Fantastic, fantastic. Wow, yeah, and that I think that resonates with my experience with mobbing, where you know, me by myself or with a pair, you know, we can figure out some things, you know, like a pair hitting like 80% of what we should have done when we modified the code. But then when you have a mob, you have basically all the knowledge, you know, and all the different mindsets coming into play here. And yeah, that jump from 80 to 100, I feel like I've seen that before. So what you mentioned one term that I have several questions about. So maybe you can help define it first. So training from the back of the room. So let's say some in our audience have never heard of that concept, but basically what is that? And then I'll ask some follow-up questions on that.
Yes, Training from the Back of the Room was a bestseller book that came out a few years ago, and they used to do a live workshop about training the trainer. And basically, it's based on evidence about how our brain learn, which it's basically best to learn in a group collaboratively. But to learn, to retain your knowledge, you actually need to learn by doing. You need to discuss about what you are doing, and you need to let the people to discover it by themselves, right? There is this discovery, this make it wrong and then make it right. You need to let the people do things, and the teacher needs to stay at the back of the room, right? To let the people have the initiative. And we had a luck to work with Terry Fritz and do an experimental course online, because when the pandemic hit, obviously they were trying to find a way to move the workshop online. And we experiment with the first version. And it was fantastic. We already were doing our training, but that opened us a lot of new exercises and way to prepare the mob before and to reflect about the mob after. So we introduced mirror boards before and after the mob in order to wrap up the exercise even better. And actually, after the course, we explained to Terry what we were doing. Right? So she was like, "Oh my God, I've never seen that. Can I join one of your lessons to see how you do your thing? What is mob programming? I've never seen it. Can I join?" So one lesson, we invited her to assist at the mob. And after the lesson, she was blown away. She was like, "Wow, this mob programming, it's exactly training from the back of the room. You let them do. They will have a lot of fun. I can see why they love your training. It's so much fun for them," right? So we were like so happy about that.
Yes, basically, she confirmed that mob programming, it's actually now a pattern for training from the back of the room. So one of the ways of improving the retention of what you learn is, of course, practicing, discussing, reflecting on what you do, and also teaching others. And that's one of the reasons why part of our course, which is already has already been mentioned, is about teaching others. So there are some lessons where people are actually requested to show others what they learned, and not only on the mob, but also through a presentation, so that they have to basically exercise the skill of improving the communication. And many times we find out that these people actually managed to apply this knowledge in production way earlier than we expected. And through the mob, it's actually way less risky for them, especially on, I would say, on the mental health side, because when you have a team of people that start collaborating, you feel less pressure, you feel less of a martyr or a hero dealing with code. You're not alone. And many other people can support you while you're doing something risky, especially when you're dealing with legacy code. Legacy code can deal with people's lives, if they're working in the health system, or people's savings. So a small mistake can have a huge impact, both on the users of the system, but also on the psychology of the people working on the system. So my metaphor in there is that mob programming, it's almost like having an equipe of doctors. So if you're doing something risky like brain surgery, you don't want just a doctor in the room, right? I mean, I wouldn't, at least. Okay, so if something's very risky, you want to have the best people in the room to tackle the problem, so that the risk drops and you can maximize the outcome of it. And that's when mob programming gets into place, because everyone's sharing their opinion. The best outcome is it's almost ensured. Of course, there's no silver bullet. We know that. So we know that sometimes people require their time to recover after a mob session, especially if they're not the extremely communicative type. We know that there are situations where maybe the most vocal ones are guiding a little bit too much, and that's when, and maybe we'll talk about it later, the mob programming actually, in my opinion, works a little bit of a organizational psychotherapy kind of thing, because it becomes almost like a help group if you know how to handle those situations. But maybe we'll come back to this later.
Nice. Yeah, right.
Okay,
on.
so go. I don't have much to add after Alex and Marco, so I was just gonna say that I'll pass.
Perfect. No worries at all. No worries. So you mentioned someone. I kind of missed the name of someone who joined your training and said, "Oh, this is what training from the back of the room was."
Terry Freitas. She,
Oh.
it's She is one of our testimonials here in our flyer.
Nice. Right on, right on. Very good, very good. Well, I definitely want to come back to the psychotherapy thing, but the one thing that jumped out to me at first is being the place where I work a lot. We do mob programming all the time, and we'll do it for training as well. And or just more informally, like, hey, someone wants to come teach us, you know, we're struggling with this part of the code, invite this person into the mob and they'll kind of teach us.
Mhm.
So when you're doing these sessions where you're training from the back of the room, do you like form a mob of, you know, people attending this training, and then the coach is not in the mob? Like, where is the coach, and what's that kind of relationship? Yeah.
I can speak on that, and then so usually the coach is moderating the mob. It's not actively participating on the mob programming. It's like taking a step to the back of the room. I'm actually at the back of the room watching the mob, and if I'm there, I'm just intervening when it's strictly necessary. So Alex mentioned something. Maybe you have some person that's very shy, and then you start noticing that person is not really taking the full advantage of the mob, and then you might intervene and say, hey, let's give some space for this person to participate, or maybe you amplify their voice. So that person speaks very, very low, and you pay really attention and say, hey, have you listened to, I don't know, Anthony here? You are not paying attention to him. He's saying really, really interesting things. You should pay attention to him. So you start amplifying their voice. And this is an example of also teaching from the back of the room. So you are at the end of the room, they are doing their exercise, participating, and then you are noticing small behaviors that comes with experience. This person that doesn't speak much, or maybe the driver is not a very fast typer and types really slow, and you start noticing people getting nervous. And then sometimes I just go and type really slow. Look, sorry, I'm also very, very slow at typing. I've never learned. So you show your vulnerability, and they look at you as someone that's teaching, and then you suddenly go there and say, hey, I also type very slow. I'll drive for a minute. Please don't put too much pressure on me, because it's very hard to be here typing. Or maybe someone that's being very vocal. I say, okay, let's go. You go there driving, and see how you feel when people put pressure on you. So I think that's teaching from the back of the room, but you need to pay attention to sometimes subtle things that are happening, and maybe not deal with them directly. Just like I was saying, amplify this person's voice, go there yourself and show them. So try not to antagonize everyone or create any conflict. But yeah, I think that's how I would answer your question.
I actually have a mantra about that. I always say, typing is not the bottleneck. Yes. So don't be afraid. Sometimes we do it online because with Zoom and the pandemic, we move it online. We saw that online works maybe even better than live. And so sometimes there is lag. Guys, don't worry. Typing is not the bottleneck. Thinking right is the bottleneck. Right? So don't worry about typing. And yes, it's true what Pedro says. It's very true. I have a little story about this that happened recently. Because we like to have, as Pedro said before, people from different teams in the mob, but also from different seniority, right? We want to have the senior, the principal, and the junior together, right? Because, that's spicy up the diversity of things. And there's different things that people can learn there. But for example, there was this mob where there was a really junior people just came out of uni. And this person was a little bit shy, right? Because he felt like, oh my God, this is a professional training with senior people. And so he was very shy. But yeah, so I have to force his voice a few times, right? I was saying just the minimum, right? But I was impressed because every time this boy opened his mouth, he was saying the right things. And so I had to stop many times. The mob was the design expressing opinion. I had to stop and say, hey, I heard somebody say this, right? And so everybody was like, who was that? And so he was forced to explain his opinion. And he actually was explaining the senior things, right? And that was fantastic, right? So it's balancing the personalities, the role of the trainer in the way we do. And then we have also we use round robin rotation. Strictly round robin rotation. We rotate all the roles. We have a tool called MobJam that we released for everyone to use eventually to keep. We maybe put the link later when you publish in the show. And with this tool, the tool tell who is the next, and everybody needs to rotate every 10 minutes. So everyone feel the pain of all the roles.
Fantastic. Wow. Yeah, that really helps explain it a lot. And what you're talking about it in a training context, but I think it's in one sense describing my personal journey from mob programming on production code, full time, is that, when I first started, I just wanted to help contribute, whether that was driving or navigating and being directly involved. And then over time, when I've been shifting more from just directly contributing to the code or to the team or that kind of thing, is I've heard others trying to urge me in the direction of, and I don't think I had the phrase quite down, but training from the back of the room. I think they're trying to tell me how to do that. And I think that is kind of my next area of growth. I've done some experimenting with it over the last probably 6 months to a year. But what you're saying means a lot, where basically it's not like you're not there. It's not like you're not present, but you're not necessarily in the driver navigator rotation. And you are basically just there to intervene right when it's needed. And I think
almost a facilitator role.
Facilitator role. Yeah.
Right? You are trying to ease, because eventually you want a mob to be self-sufficient, right? But mobbing, it's also a skill. So you can't expect them to be proficient from the beginning. And that's when you slightly nudge people, especially the most senior, to behave more as mentors. So one of our ideas is also to promote a culture of mentorship and leadership, leading by example. So in this situation, it's really important to be able to mediate, to negotiate. In fact, another mantra that Marco says, Pedro says during the lessons is state your intention. Before telling type this, write that, state your intention. Make sure to communicate what's your goal before you start actually typing, so that the driver has the time to ease in and ask questions, because otherwise they can feel overwhelmed. And that's a way to create an environment that's safe for people to discuss. And in fact,
also for the mob to contribute to the idea, or to evaluate the idea, right? Maybe somebody doesn't agree to the strategy. And so first, let's say the strategy, and then implement the strategy. So we can discuss the strategy. And that's where they have to learn, right? Like Michael Father said, software development is the art to do one thing at a time, right? And that's where we intervene, right? Because they say, okay, I want to do this. Okay, so let's start this. Okay, but we have to do also that. Oh, so let's start that. And they say, wait. So you say you wanted to do that, and now we are doing this. Are you doing that or this? Yeah, no, because, okay. Sorry, let's go back, all right? And that's what they need to learn, to hold their horses, right? The beginning is not easy.
But I should say that, sorry.
Go.
One of the things we notice is that you can literally see the difference of the flow already on the first mob. So in the first mob, for example, we start with something very simple, FizzBuzz, okay? Because the scope of the first lesson is to give you an overview of test-driven development, but especially of the workflow of mob programming. And you see that at the beginning, it takes forever even to write the first test, because people don't know even how to communicate what they want to do. Okay, not only that they don't know what to do, but even if they had an idea, it was difficult to communicate that. by the end of the lesson, you see people already able to communicate effectively how to move forward. And by the end of the first module, people are addicted to mob programming, to the point that we know now, after a while doing our course, people joining our course have been in the mobs that started from by the people that joined the course previously in the same company, and they have a kickstart that it's already way ahead compared to the people in the past. And you know they have been doing mob programming in the company already, even if they have not been doing test-driven development. You know that that's the way that makes them feel like they are contributing more and they are more effective on the workplace.
Nice. Pedro.
Oh, I just thought about something. I don't know how related this is, but it's related to the facilitation. So I'll share a thing. At some point, I was in a conference in, I think it was in Canary Islands, and people wanted me to do a mob session. But of course, there were people coming in and in and in into the room. So there would be maybe 20 people that wanted to participate in the mob. So I had like this, how I'm going to get this mob of 20 people. And then I had this idea of, don't know if you are aware of this fishbowl thing, where there's like 5 chairs, 4 people sit and 1 is free. So I combined the mob with this, and this is something that just came. I was like, what am I going to do? So if you want to participate in the mob, there's going to be maybe 5 or 6. You need to sit in these chairs. Everyone else is just listening. And if you feel like you want to contribute to the mob, you stand up, you go to the empty chair, you sit down, and someone that's in the other chairs needs to leave. So the next chair is free. So this way, and it was just me under pressure, and I just, mob programming also scales to bigger teams. So we have an audience, and anyone from the audience that thinks, I want to join, I have something important. Don't shout at the driver, don't shout at the mob, just go and sit on the empty chair, and someone needs to leave. And then people rotate from the audience. I was like, this is really, really nice. And it was just another thing that happened because just of pressure. I needed to sort out that big mob of people. So maybe someone wanting to do this could try this fishbowl technique to do mob programming with larger crowds.
I will try it. You gave me an amazing idea just right now.
You have not tried this.
Not yet, but I'm gonna try it soon.
It works.
Yeah, it's almost like it almost has like a person visual Kanban thing going on, right? Like where someone wants to participate, so they put themselves in the queue, and then you can just see it visually. That's really cool.
And you limit the work in progress, which is the amount of people participating to the mob, right? So if someone wants to get in, someone else has to get out. Okay.
Nice. So why not have stadiums full of people be in one mob?
It will take a lot to wait for the chair, right?
Nice. So yeah, I mean, this has been really cool and helpful for me, because I think my journey from being a contributor in the mob to being a facilitator, but almost like a contributing facilitator who's kind of part of it, to more of a back of the room facilitator, I think is maybe my next growth step. And I'm already creating stickies here on my desk to run experiments. So thank you for inspiring me there. Before we close out, I wanted to jump into the psychotherapy thing. Alex, do you mind kicking us off a little bit on that topic?
Yes. Software development is a taxing job on mental health. We all know that many people burn out because of stress, because of, they are always pushing. I dodged that bullet by very little, so I know what I'm talking about, unfortunately. And recently I met an amazing person, Bob Marshall, which I should say is also the father of lean software development, at least here in UK. And he's working on his next book called Mimeology, where he talks about memplexes. So memplexes are basically the shared common understanding and subconscious idea that organization of people have. And he basically says that the real resources of a company are not the people, but the relationship between the people. And so the shared knowledge, the shared values are the actual things that shape the organizational mind, distributed mind, if we want to talk about that. And another thing that he says is that you want to attend to people's needs. Okay, so if you attend to people's needs, not only the customers, for example, but also the management, also the executives, also the developers, the quality engineers, the architect, everyone. If you take into account all the people are involved in the production of software, and you care for them, and you care for the relationships between them, that's when the magic happens. And he talks about organizational psychotherapy in these terms. And so why is this related to mob programming? After a lot of sessions in our course, you can see the dynamics of people when they're working, okay? And since they're focused on solving a problem, they don't feel like it's a psychological environment, even now we are in a psychological environment, okay? Maybe I am trying to put a face for the camera right now, if I was at the bar downstairs, I would be something slightly different, right? So these are all the subtleties that after a while you start noticing. So for example, you can find someone that is really antagonizing, or someone that is always vocal, or someone that is always shy. So why that happens? Why are these people needing to behave like that? And that's when you get deeper insights. Maybe the most vocal one actually is insecure, or maybe he feels threatened. The person that is antagonized feels threatened in the mob. So why is that? So this is why I think mob programming and organizational psychotherapy is something that could be really, really powerful. And that's when I believe the role of the facilitator can be even more effective, because the moment you create a baseline for technical practices, so the technicalities is not the bottleneck anymore, then is the psychological safety of people that becomes the bottleneck. What are the hidden agendas? But not because people are not honest. It's because people have fears, have aspirations, have interests, are afraid of something. And the moment you can recognize this through mobbing, that helps. In fact, some of our students even proposed enlarged mobs where the management comes in, where the architects and not just the developers, not always, but sometimes join the mob, so that they can see for themselves. They can see, especially the, let's say, facilitator that then becomes the organizational psychotherapist, sees the landscape and maybe start asking hard questions. For example, there's a question in this book that really gives me the goosebumps. And basically, no, it's a powerful question. It's like, what are the things we are afraid to talk about in the company? How many of these people are even able to answer this question publicly in a mob, and why? So this kind of reasoning, I think it's the future for better software and better products and better companies, honestly.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I guess I could really, I think I've been doing full-time mob programming for coming up on 3 years, and I think you're really right that when a group is together like that and being vulnerable, it really is a chance to get at those interpersonal issues, right? And really work through them well. And I think from stories I've heard online where mobbing didn't work out, often it's because they weren't able to get through those interpersonal issues, right? And so my heart always goes out for those situations, because it's kind of like, well, there are ways to work through those, and I think it's fantastic, I guess, if you can have the right people there to help move it along, right? And really work through those issues. And yeah, and I think you're right. It is kind of mobbing is a growing thing on many levels. Like you put it, socio-technical. And I think it can really get to the core of a lot of things at a company. And I'll probably stop monologuing there, and we are coming up on time. But I'm feeling inspired and want to dig deeper. But unfortunately, we're out of time. But maybe we'll pick it up some other time.
We can give you a couple of books if you want to dig deeper about these organizational psychotherapy things, which it's a consequence of systems thinking and the fact that every group have a collective mindset. And what Bob Marshall says is that the effective of the organization is a function of the collective mindset. Every group has a mind of its own, if you want, and this collective mindset is the shared beliefs of the group. So if the group doesn't have a lot of shared beliefs, the collective mindset is very weak, and then you don't get to the problem. It's when you are able to have a foundational set of things that everyone believes in, that then the group start to move on at the speed of light, right? But these needs to be built.
Even increasing awareness, just letting people understand that they have those beliefs makes a difference, because you can't force people to do anything, right? You can just show them what they think, let them discover what they think, which is the next level of thinking, right? On one side, you have problem solving, but when problem solving, it's a solved problem. Then what's the next problem? Well, maybe it's something a bit more hidden.
With self-awareness, right? And the books are, let me say, the books Hearts Over Diamond and Memeology from Bob Marshall. They are all available in LeanPub.
Nice. Yeah, and I think I remember me and a colleague were talking. We observed some interpersonal issues going on between people who weren't mobbing, and what we said was, you know, what we've seen is when people mob together and then they work through it, right, as opposed to just letting their issues sit, then these things tend to fade away, right? And so I've seen that happen many times, is that if they can mob and face their issues and work through it, then they can come out of it.
They need to find a connection, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's not easier when it happens, and then the problem goes away.
Right, for sure. And maybe not away completely, but at least on a good path. So cool. So we are hitting our time box, but is there anything that each of you would like to share or plug before we close the show? We'll start with you, Marco.
Yeah, well, last thing, since I spoke about books of others, I can mention also my own book. I will, near Christmas, it's a book in Italian. It's called Cronache di DDD. Translation is Stories of Domain-Driven Design. I co-authored this book with Alberto Brandolini, Jacopo Romei, and other Italian practitioners. So I'm looking forward to see the end result near Christmas.
Fantastic. How about you, Alex?
Well, as I already said, I want to thank Bob Marshall and Terry Frith. Bob Marshall, as Marco said before, is publishing Memeology, his new book about organizational psychotherapy, highly recommended. And maybe there's something boiling between me and Pedro, but I don't know. I'll let Pedro say that for later.
Yeah. You put me on the spot, because there's another. So the book we wrote took me 5 years to finally, from all those years working until I met Marco and he said, let's do it. And then we finished in like 6 months, maybe. This one has been brewing for like 2 years, and it's been a bit of feedback from people. They say, hey, well, we always working on small katas. It's great. We learn concentrated things, but I want to do like a big thing with domain-driven design, hexagonal architecture, and all that. And me and Alex have been on and off on this book. Sometimes we work very intensive for a month, then we stop. It's based on an exercise from our book that I can say. It's called the Catacombs of Shoreditch. Yeah, Catacombs of Shoreditch, and it's like a game. Those games, the console games where you could play and go from one room to the other. And the idea is that you build a bigger exercise, and the book is just leading you through and trying to do this. But I'm really on the spot. I don't know when this is when we are going to find time, but maybe this puts pressure on me and Alex to work on it.
Right on, right on. Well, thank you for sharing all those things, and thank you for all your contributions to the many communities, whether it's Agile, whether it's domain-driven, whether it's the mob programming community. You guys are really contributing a lot, and we really appreciate it. You know, even your mob programming sessions, your mob jam sessions, those have been fun to see published. And yeah, so to all our audience, if you feel inspired and you want to share this with somebody, we encourage you to share. Anyone else is looking to help grow in their socio-technical skills and train and help others from the back of the room, please like and subscribe. Please, we'd love your comments and feedback on YouTube, Twitter, and more. And until next time, Mob will have a good one, and have a good one, everybody. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.